How's it going, everybody? Today I'd just like to make a review of my Doxa Sub 300t. As you can see, this is the Divingstar model. Doxa offers a few different models and a fairly large variety of watches in their diving range. Basically all their watches are diving watches. There's a lot of them that kind of look similar to this case. I picked a Sub 300t because to me it's kind of more beefy looking, it's a little heavier. I wanted the adjustable clasp that this watch has, and so that's why I picked it. The Divingstar model for me was the most appealing. The orange was nice too. I like the orange, but for me the yellow was the best. Doxa released a yellow Poseidon Divingstar quite a few years ago. That one was the first Doxa that I ever saw that caught my eye. I just really liked the yellow, and so that's why I picked the yellow. For me, what was most appealing was the design of the watch, though. I think it's a really nice design, and so I'll go over that now. First, the dial on this watch. Mine's yellow. There's several colors. Professional is sort of their most famous one, or at least from what I read and people say, that's their most famous one. I would say the watches themselves, not so famous amongst people who are not into watches really, but that's beside the point, I suppose. So the dial here is yellow. It's completely printed. This watch has the Doxa logo on the left side there, and then Sub 300t Divingstar below. I like that sort of crosshair look that this has with the offset logos. I think that's a very cool. The markers are white, printed with loom. The loom is not very good, honestly. I would expect it to be better, but it is what it is. It's not that great, honestly, in my opinion. As you can see, it's very printed. The dial's a little flat, to be totally honest, but I think the dial's pretty good. It's super easy to read, and that's what you're looking for. As you can see by the minute hands, and the hour hand, and the second hands, they're coated in a glossy paint that makes them really easy to read on top of the yellow, and they look good too. This has this famous Doxa design that I'm sure you're probably aware of by this point, but they always have the large minute hand, and this is because when you're diving, the whatever's on the bezel is kind of more important, as is the minutes, more so than the hour. So that's why it's like that. At least that's what I read, and that's what folks tend to say. So that's why it's like that. Cool design. Overall, the dial is not super dynamic. It's not very luxury, but it's extremely easy to read, and I like the looks of the dial. I think it's great. The bezel on this watch, you can hear it clicking here. It's really tight. It's super easy to spin and turn. The grip is really easy. The bezel sits up a little bit off the case. It has this decompression timer here, and you can read the instructions in the Doxa book, the manual that comes with the watch. And I think it says it on their website too. There's a PDF manual that you can download it. If you dive for 30 minutes and you go to 90 feet, you can only stay down for 30 minutes at 90 feet before you have to decompress before you come up. So that's how this is designed. Very, very iconic, I guess, to Doxa, as this design is for this bezel. I would never use this, but I think it looks cool. It's like all these watches, right? There's not too many features we would use, but I think the bezel overall is really interesting. It's super easy to read, and I just like how it looks. The case itself is really nice. It is a super iconic design to Doxa, I would say. I wouldn't say this is an icon amongst all watches, but as far as maybe Doxa and then even still dive watches, this is a great design, an iconic design. I really like how it looks. I don't like to use the icon language just because icon is sort of subjective, but I would say as far as Doxa goes, this is what you would think is iconic to Doxa. That's how I would phrase that. This has the cushion case or tonneau case. It's similar to a Seiko turtle. Similar size. The turtle's a little bigger, but kind of a sort of this typical look, cushion case look, which is what I really like. It's pretty compact. It's a heavy watch. It feels sort of very dense, if I can say that. But the finishing on the case and the design is really good. I think that's really what attracts me to this watch, is the design of the case. The crown here as well is nice. You can see it has the fish logo. I guess that's called a Jenny fish logo. The Jenny family, I guess, is who owns the brand, and they put this logo on Doxa watches, newer Doxa watches. The crown is nice. It works great. The pop is nice, and it spins well. So the crown is pretty good. This also has a helium escape valve on the 300Ts, the newer 300Ts. This watch can go on 1,200 meters of water resistance, which is completely crazy. I would never go down that deep, or not even close to that deep. I don't even dive. So, but hey, whatever. Cool to have. Helium escape valve is not a feature I would ever use, but it's cool to have it. Again, I always say it's like having a sports car. You're never going to drive the car as fast as it can go, but you just buy these things just to have them. It's a superfluous item in your life, and that's kind of the fun of it, right? Is maybe getting things that are a little bit unnecessary, and for me, that's interesting. The movement in this watch is an ETA 2824, as far as I can tell. I'm fairly certain this one is an ETA 2824. Typical movement, nothing too special here, but it just works. So good quality. I have quite a few of these and I've experienced these before. This one is fairly accurate as far as I can tell, so I'm not the biggest stickler for accuracy, but this watch is pretty good. The movement, nothing special again, but it's a solid movement. It's sort of like a Toyota Corolla of Swiss movements or something like that. It's a good movement, not special, but it works and it'll work for a long time. The bracelet on this watch is the legendary Doxa Beads of Rice bracelet. I love the looks of the bracelet. I think it's really good looking. The style of it is amazing. It's quite beefy. It's thick. The bracelet is rather chunky and it's quite heavy. So that might be a turn off for you. It is a bit of a heavy watch, I will say, and the bracelet adds to that heft. The clasp on this is a ratcheting clasp. Works really well. Kind of not the most sophisticated design of ratcheting system, but it works nonetheless. As you can see on the other side of the clasp here, it has the Jenny Fish logo, then Doxa on it. So good clasp overall. I think you'll see variations of this clasp in other watches, even micro brands, but again, it works, so I can't complain about it. It is rather large though, so the bracelet itself is fairly chunky if you're not used to maybe larger sports watches. One area I think they could improve with the bracelet is with the end links here. As you can see, it doesn't quite fit the case. I knew about this beforehand, before I bought the watch, but I think that this could add an extra layer of refinement. It's not really something that bothers me on a daily basis, but again, as a watch person, I'm kind of picky with things, so I think that this could be improved upon. Aside from that, I really like the bracelet. It's sized with screws, and I find it extremely comfortable. So overall, great bracelet. Big fan. The wear of this watch, the way it wears, as you can see on my wrist here, I have a 7.5-inch wrist, so I got a fairly large wrist. It's really comfortable. It's a heavier, sort of dense feeling watch in my opinion, so it kind of sits in the middle of my wrist and doesn't move. The short lug to lug really makes it comfortable. It doesn't overhang, even if you got smaller wrists. But the heft, I would say, probably is the biggest thing with this watch. It is, if you're, again, I have a bigger watches than this, right? I like bigger sports watches, but it is a relatively heavy watch, I think. It feels dense, and the bracelet makes it heavy, but I think it's pretty comfortable. For me, I like to feel a little bit of weight, so overall, it's a really comfortable watch. It looks amazing too. I think you won't see too many people wearing this watch out in the open. I've never seen somebody wearing a Doxa, and odds are if they're wearing a Doxa, they're enthusiasts, a watch enthusiasts. So overall, with the Doxa brand, what appeals to me is the uniqueness. The value for this watch, you could argue that you're not getting a super good value. Oris Aquis is a really good competitor to this watch, kind of a similar price point. They're very different. The Oris, I think, is more kind of a luxury-esque watch, or at least something that you would associate with luxury, for me at least, right? It's got applied indices, it's got high polish, it's shiny, it's got the ceramic bezel. It just looks a bit more luxe, bit more flash, but maybe you don't think that flashiness means luxury, right? Maybe you want a heavy, good quality tool watch that goes down, that you can dive with, it looks great, and that's kind of what the Doxa does. So it really depends on what you're looking for. I would suggest that the Oris, for most folks, might be more appealing, especially if it's like your first expensive watch, as it was for me. But if the style appeals to you, like for me, the Doxa style is what draws me to it the most. There's nothing that looks like a Doxa watch. And so I think that it's one of the most unique watches you can get. It looks amazing. All the colors are great. As I said, I like the yellow the best personally. But yeah, I think the magic with the Doxa is really down to the looks. Again, I'm not the biggest person when it comes to the history of a watch. There's certain watches like the Speedmaster that have a really amazing history. Doxa's good there too. But the main thing for me was how the watch looks. It's just such a good looking watch. Just to sum up my negative points with this watch, I would say the value, while it's pretty good at $18.90, could be a little bit better for what you're getting. You're paying a lot for that brand name. The fit and finish of the watch is quite good. So this certainly doesn't feel cheap, but you know, I think some people will see printed dial, sort of micro-brandish class. They might knock that a bit. For me, I have to get the Doxa. I liked the Doxa, so no substitutes in my mind for this Doxa. The bracelet fit to the case. As I say, I think it could be a little bit better, but it doesn't bug me too much. Other than that, I'd say the case back, it sort of has this laser engraving. It'd be nice to see a bit higher quality engraving on a watch at this price point. Seiko has nicer engravings in the back of their cases. This one here with this laser etching, I think it could be engraved a little bit nicer, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much because I'm not looking at that, right? So, but yeah, overall, as you can tell, I'm a big fan of Doxa with minimal critiques. It's hard not to start just buying a whole bunch of them just because I think they're great. I'm a big fan of Doxa, so thanks for watching my video. Take care, and bye-bye.